Since I'm going to be a reporter and ask everybody the tough question for us personally now, I got to go first, and I just want to say I loved his big personality. He came in with a big smile, a lot of energy, and he put on a show, and I think that's a big part of the reason that I liked him so much. And my emotions today almost surprised me about how strongly I feel about the guy. This is a terrible tragedy, and I encourage you, if you have suicidal thoughts, to reach out to somebody, because we wish you to stay around, and we wish that Tom had as well.
Tom sat right there, and we would yell jokes back and forth to each other, and it's going to be a little weird to not do that anymore.
Something's missing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. He'll never be Tom to me either. He's always going to be TJ. TJ Thunder is what I always called him. He called me Hill. I just, first names were never really a thing. So I'm really going to miss him a lot.
I connected with Tom through football. He loves his Philadelphia Eagles, and I enjoyed telling him how much they stink. and being the arrogant Patriots fan that I am.
Yeah.
So I'd walk by the weather center. I'd make my little joke, and then I'd always start humming "Thunderstruck" as we're walking by. Da-na-na-na-na-na. That's what I'll remember about Tom.
I think this is it right here. We were the Philly boys, so we had that Philly connection. Loved and hated Philly sports. Loved Philly cheesesteaks even more than the sports. So I remember we had the Thursday night football game, Eagles-Giants, and we planned months in advance if we were going to order cheesesteaks and watch the game and work a little bit less that night. So we did that, and that's going to be one of my favorite memories with them.
You're on the set with him a lot.
Yeah. I mean, sports comes right after weather. I watched the last 30 seconds of his weather report twice a day for 5 days a week for however many months, and he'd come off and I'd be like, thanks for warming up the green screen for me. So I'd go on right after him. And it's funny because obviously the weather is important as much more than mine, so that was the little running joke that we had.
Good guy.
Great guy. Positive, infectious, I think, is a pretty good word to describe his personality. I mean, you can't walk past the weather office without saying hi to him and just stopping just to have a conversation about whatever. I mean, for us, it was the first thing, just, the Philly connection every day, checking in with our team and stuff like that, and then just talking about whatever thereafter. So
there are two things that I remember most about Tom. One, the first thing that I really caught him saying, and I saw it in a commercial when I first knew who Tom was, and he said, "I'm not from Maine, but I got here as soon as I could." And there was something about that struck me, and I felt this instant connection with him because it's exactly how I felt. And he put that into words so beautifully. The other thing that strikes me about Tom is that he had this inner light that came through when he got out in front of that green screen. Yeah. And there was one story he was telling during a storm center where he was checking into a hotel because he wanted to stay close to the station, and the lady at the front desk told him about the weather and that it wasn't going to be as bad as they thought it was, and he's like, "I'm actually pretty sure that's not the way it's going." But he told the story and that he was just so kind to this woman who was trying to tell him the weather, and he got such a kick out of it too. So he just had this wonderful light about him that it'll really be missed in this building and beyond too, obviously.
Tom was just a very warm and friendly guy, and I just remember this one time I went and commented on how he was just so unflappable. Yeah. Like, I remember one time we were doing Storm Center. Yep. We were in full Storm Center mode, and he was out on the street just outside the building, and it was really icy. And I remember that there was this time that he was basically, like, a couple things happened. First of all, this like a city plow truck came by and almost knocked he and the photographer over, and he just very calmly, "Oh, there's a truck coming. We're just going to move over here," and the photographer moved with him, and everything was good, and it was just completely unflappable. And then the other thing that he did was he grabbed the photographer and said, look at the photographer's shoes, and the photographer went, up like lifted his foot up like this, and showed his cleats, and said, "This is what we're dealing with out here." And the photographer was very nimble, and Tom was just unflappable. He could kind of deal with any situation. And I went up to him afterwards. I said, "That was pretty dynamic." I said, "That was a great report. You didn't matter what was coming at you, or you were okay with just kind of grabbing the photographer." And I just said, "It was really a great story. Thanks for doing that." He said, "Oh, thanks."
So I was that photographer, and I definitely remember him. He was so enamored right out of Florida. He was so enamored that ice was slippery, and he was so enamored that you could actually put something on your shoes that would stop you from sliding all around. The other thing I want to say is that everybody will talk about his love for sports and for for the outdoors and whatever, but he was also really into music, and we connected on a band called Rusted Root. He loved Rusted Root, and we talked about different performance experiences we had, and one song in particular that they are very famous for. It's called "Send Me on My Way," and I remember both of us talking and agreeing that if you listen to "Send Me on My Way," it'll cheer you up.
Tom was one of the funniest people I have ever met. The spirit that radiated out of that weather center over there, every night he was in here, I will always remember doing Facebook Lives with him, writing blogs with him, trying to come up with little Led Zeppelin, classic rock related stuff. He was an amazing person. I will never forget him.
Tom was always willing to help out wherever he could. I'm a producer, so I work behind the scenes, and I can't tell you the amount of times I would have a live shot drop or something fail in my show, and I would quickly get in Tom's ear and say, "Tom, can you help me? I really need you." And he would immediately hop up from the weather desk and run over to the weather center and do whatever he could. He was always right there. And I think it's because he loved what he was doing, and he was so excited to be a part of this team that no matter what, he was always there, and meant a lot to me.
I'm one of those guys who only needs to know how much is it going to snow or rain tomorrow. I don't need a lot of detail. But Tom knew there are a lot of people who really want more, and he was serious about this. So he'd be here at night, and if he didn't think he got enough time on the air, he would do these Facebook Live things with his fans for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, details about the maps and the pressure systems, and I thought, who's watching this? But people were watching this, and I respect a guy who takes his job so seriously. But I also sometimes wondered if maybe he was a little too obsessed with Facebook, because sometimes when someone would ask to pose for a picture with him, he'd ask him, "How many Facebook friends you got?" Because he wanted to make sure he got the widest distribution possible. So, love and mercy, Tom.
Well, every night he wanted to write his famous TJ Thunder blog, the weather blog that got so many hits, and he was so competitive that he wanted it to be nothing short of perfect. So most nights I would sit down with him, probably at least a half hour, 45 minutes, just to write the blog and kind of guide him through how to put in all the pictures, because he wanted to make it fun. And he would be checking it over and over and make sure everything was in the right place. And that showed how much he really cared about what he was delivering to his viewers.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up, because Todd and Keith said the same thing. He was a competitive guy. I never even noticed it. I never noticed that. I just thought he was a guy,
Oh no, it was competitive in such a fun way.
Yeah.
He would look at the board. We have Chartbeat that shows how many people are on the web stories at any given moment. So as soon as he posted it, the numbers would go way up. 50, 60, if it was a big storm, upwards of 100. And he'd always pick at me saying that my story only had 1 or 2 people on it, but it was totally fine. He's like, not that your story is bad or anything, but I just wanted to let you know that I have 70 people on mine. He was great.
Tom was the meteorologist that I started with when I came to WCSH6 to work on the weekend morning report as the anchor. And that wasn't necessarily my first interaction with Tom. I met him when I came down from Bangor one day to meet with an image consultant. And Tom and I had spoken a few times back and forth on air and on the phone, a couple text messages, but we'd never met in person. And when I showed up that day to the office to see the image consultant, I was heading to the restroom and I passed the weather desk and there was Tom Johnston in the flesh for the first time. And I went up and I said, "Hey, Tom," thinking that it was kind of going to be a very professional interaction. I'm about to reach out my hand. "Hi, I'm News Center's Katie Pavoso." And Tom just looked at me and he turned and he goes, "Hey, Katie," as if we'd been friends for years. And like it was not even the first time we were meeting. And that was every single interaction that I had with him. He made me feel special. He made me feel like I was the only person in that moment that mattered. He made me feel important. And that was something that was so specific to him, where everybody in this newsroom does make me feel important, but there was something about Tom where he made you feel, after you walked away from a conversation with him, just better about who you were and better about your day. And I'm gonna miss that so much.
What really impresses me about Tom is the connection he made with viewers. People really loved him. They really liked the depth of his forecast, and they knew how enthusiastic he was about this, how much the forecasting meant to him. And you know, today I've been hearing all kinds of comments from people about how much Tom's presence meant to them. And they really believed and felt that he was part of their family, bringing them into their home every night. He was an important part of their family, and they're going to miss him.
Well, I just want to say that anytime I went out with Tom, it was always a good time. Anytime I got to be his photographer, it was always fun and energetic, full of energy. And we were actually the first crew to take Stormy out. We were like, there was like literally like 30 miles on it, and everyone was just like, "Be very careful, like don't crash it." And and it was just, I remember driving in it and he was like, this vehicle's awesome. Everyone is looking at us, because you know, it's like, you know, the wrap is, it has an awesome wrap on it, and he was just like, "Man, this is awesome." So yeah, anytime I got to work with him, it was just really fun.
Tom and I had kind of a unique background, shared background. We both worked in Jacksonville, Florida, in the news market down there. So the moment that I met him, we connected, and we would talk about the Jacksonville beaches and all of that, and talk here. Anytime I was on the air, he would come up to me afterward and he'd say, "I love your voice. Oh, like manna from heaven." So we would laugh about that, and I thought the world of Tom. I thought he was a great guy. I loved bantering with him. Just found him to be a smiling, charming guy. We would pass each other down in the hallway. I'm sure you did too. Going to do a shot down at the green wall downstairs, and always the two of us would try to kind of out-nice each other. Step back. No, you go. No, you go. Yeah. You know. So it was always kind of ships passing in the night down there, but it was always a special encounter.
But you've hit on something that's really bothering me today, because I liked him. I knew him. You know, hey, Tom, you know, he was one of my half dozen or so favorites. And I like to stop and talk to Tom. I don't stop and talk to a lot of people. And I don't think I knew him. I missed this. You know, I'm upset with myself that somehow I feel culpable that this happened. You know what I mean? Are you going through that stuff today?
Oh, I think everybody does. I think you can't not. When you work so closely with people, what are the signs we missed? How come we didn't know more about him? I think you're right. Yeah. I wanted to, you know, I talked to him a little bit about his background, where he grew up. Sure. I grew up in the Mid-Atlantic. He grew up in the Mid-Atlantic, so we would kind of have a funny discourse about that. But I think that what Tom wanted to be was the incredible weather guy that he was. And I think he took that so seriously. And I think it was really important for him to enjoy his time here with us, but he was absolutely fiercely private.
I connected with Tom with his personality. I really felt he was just such a warm, engaging person. When I'd run into him here at the station, we'd chat about the weather, the kids, and the memory I have of him is just, you know, they just brought home a new baby a couple months ago, and I said, "You sleeping at all, Tom?" I know, having 3 kids myself, how challenging that can be with a newborn. He's like, "Nope, we're not sleeping a lot," but I feel so blessed to have this little guy in my life. And I just loved his personality and how he touched people, and so folksy and charming. And again, he wasn't originally from Maine, but was able to connect with people so quickly. It was challenging for me to do that, but just to watch someone roll in and just based on his sheer wonderful personality, connect with our viewers and us as well here in the newsroom. And he's being missed so deeply today, and will continue to be missed.
I think the number one thing, I think both you and I would appreciate somebody who genuinely cares about their job beyond just coming in each day. You get excited about going outdoors. I get excited about meeting people from Maine, and Tom get excited about the weather. I mean, if anything was happening outside of these doors, he wasn't excited about being in front of a green screen. He was running out and capturing the video with his phone, whether there was a cameraman or not. I always appreciated that about him, his passion for the work, and also how he never took himself too seriously. I don't think any of us should, and he never did. And haven't been doing this very long, so I get a little bit nervous about things. And he was always just like, why? Why be nervous? Just relax. And I was glad to have somebody like that around to level the mood a bit. And even though he would, joke a lot, I appreciated that. I think any of us would.
He really made everyone laugh and smile. And the fun thing that we used to do is whenever I got a chance, if I was in the building at the same time, we would go do the first Friday art walk as a live stream. And he was just so smooth. He would walk down the street, and people he's never met, he'd make an instant connection with those people. And that's how he lived here. He did that with everybody. People he's never met, he wouldn't have any reason to say hello to, but he still spent time, and he treated everybody with the most respect I've ever seen anybody give anybody. It's really a huge loss. But, no matter what happens, the thing to remember about Tom is how he lived and all the fun things he used to do. The way he would say Ellsworth or Saco or the Big Lou. He had 100 of those little things. And that's the kind of person he was down in Florida, too. He had these little sayings for all the little bays whenever he'd do the forecast for the state. And he had all these great moments that people will always have. And so, no matter what happened, you will always have that memory.
TJ, Thunder and I had a bond over Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, no kidding.
When he first started, I went to a Dave concert and he was like, send me some video, send me some video. Send me some video from the concert. I love this song, this song, this song. So I was at the concert in New York and he was working on the weekends and I was like trying to send him video. I sent him like 3 things of video and one finally got through. He's like, I'm gonna dance to it all day. So it was really awesome. TJ was a great guy, always had a smile, even when you were like grumpy coming up from the booth and you're like, oh, that show didn't go well. He was like, it's fine, there'll be another one. So we'll miss you, Tom, really.
We were doing, trying to create memes for the winter campaign for the new Storm Center team. And I was asked to kind of provide some ideas and fired off 3 memes really quickly. And Tom really liked his. He obviously, his nickname was TJ Thunder. Thunder snow is the closest and one of the hardest anomalies in weather to get. He had just missed a bout of thunder snow about this time the year previous. I was on Commercial Street and I had actually heard it and saw it, but he had missed it and he really was upset with himself because it wasn't just a little bit closer to Channel 6 here. And my second thing was, when you work digital, you're always really busy. You're doing both websites, you're doing both social media accounts, both Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts. And so when you have serious weather come through, Tom would like to do a video usually around 9 or 10 o'clock, which is kind of crunch time so that you can leave before midnight. And you don't halfway do a live weather video with Tom. The whole process from the caption for making sure that viewers understand what they're getting in for to the actual programming itself, which could range from as short as 5 minutes when I did one with him last Tuesday to as long as 30, were like marathon events, sometimes holding 2 phones at once, which might as well be 50-pound weights when you're holding them for that long. He wouldn't do any half measures on anything. He took everything down the finish line.
I remember my first day on the job here at News Center. I had to cover a pretty tough story. It's about a mom who had lost her son and the suspect was going to court. I did this story and it was really tough, and I remember Tom saying to me after the story aired, he's like, oh, this is nothing for you. And I said, I had that feeling right away of like, wow, that's someone who welcomed me into the family right away, like day one. And that was the same thing every time I'd walk by Tom's desk over in the Weather Center. we'd chat. Sometimes it was long, sometimes it was short, but every time we walked away, it kind of ended with a smile, no matter what we were talking about. And that's what I remember about Tom, is that $1 million smile.
I worked weekends for a long time, and TJ was weekend mornings, and he used to make these 80s references. He liked people to think he was a little younger than he actually was, but he kept making these 80s references, so I called him on it. Like, I'm 48 years old, so I knew he was closer to my age and he was trying to let people on, and I busted him. And he's like, no, I'm really, I said, dude, if you're talking about the Three Amigos and Wham, and you are my age. And it ended up being this long time joke. We would laugh at each other because we were 80s kids and we liked the same stuff and we liked the same music and the same sports and the same, just the stuff that we both grew up with. And he didn't like to show people that because he didn't want people to know that he was a little older, but we had this great bond. He just had this fire that I will miss tremendously. He used to make me laugh every single day because he just had this way of looking at life that not many people I know have, and I'll miss him tremendously.
This wall separates the sports office from the weather office, and on a nightly basis you'd hear a lot of that, and it was usually TJ mad that the Flyers were losing, or that the Eagles were losing, or that basically all the Phillies, all the Philadelphia teams were losing. So I took great pleasure in teasing him about that on a daily basis. Also, this mirror that he used incessantly, that I clearly never had a need for without the salad that Tom had. He had some hair, man, and yeah, he was the best.
Well, today is a very tough day. Tom and I were extremely close, and he had such a genuine zest for life and curiosity for everything. And who you saw on TV when he was next to me on the desk was exactly who he was off air. And that's a rarity in this business, to find people who are the exact same person on TV as they are in real life. There was such a genuineness from him that I will never forget. And my heart breaks today for all of those who knew him well, who met him once, who were on the TJ Thunder fan cam, and his family, holding them really close in my heart today. He was loved by a lot. So please go out and spread love today, because the world can never get enough of that.
I'm just remembering Tom as a person who walked into the newsroom every day and really brightened people's days. He was the kind of guy that would just tell jokes kind of on the side. He wasn't the kind of guy who would walk into the room and address the whole room, but everybody had their own little kind of jokes with him, connections with him, and he just had a way of really lighting up whatever, screen he was on, whatever conversation he was having. Just a really positive, bright kind of presence. And that was something really that struck me in the community whenever I would talk to people and say, oh, I work here, I'm at this station. Everybody knew him and they loved him universally. They would always say, oh, I love my TJ Thunder. And he really very quickly connected with the community, and I thought that was amazing to see. People, all kinds of people would say that to me, so that really always struck me about him.
Well, being with NECN, we don't really interact with him so often, but a lot of times when we were going to be doing storm coverage, I'd go over to the weather office and I'd talk to him about, what the weather was going to be like, where a tough spot was going to be, where a good spot to go get footage would be, and he just really conveyed a love of weather. Whenever I talked to him, he really, really liked weather, and he was never upset about me bothering him. He's doing his forecast, he's doing his thing, and I'm from another station, but he always took the time to kind of tell me and give me some hints and tips and kind of what I was looking forward to. The other thing, I had an undercut for a while there. He was one of 3 people that liked that haircut. I had it for a year. He started off making fun of it, but he started asking me like how I got it, like how often I had to get it maintained and stuff, and he was like, oh, I'm thinking about getting it, and I was like, I mean, it's a look. But he ended up not going for it, but he always had a compliment for it, which was rare when I had that haircut.
I mean, he was a colleague, but he became a little more than a colleague last summer, the Channel 6 softball game in August.
That's right.
The infamous Channel 6 softball game where I tried to beat the throw to first and ended up halfway there, and loud pop, started tumbling all over the ground. I had torn all of my hamstrings.
Both hamstrings. I've never heard of that.
It's an unprecedented injury. Exactly. No one else has seen it either. So I was in a lot of pain. It was incredibly difficult. And Tom was there. And I didn't know him real well at that point, but he helped carry me off the field. It was more than a one-man job, but he was there to help carry me off the field. And he also stayed with me while I waited for help. And so he had a little special place in my heart because of that, because he was there for me that day, and it was a tough day. And he just stayed with me, and that meant a lot to me. So, and I did get a chance to tell him that when I came back after recovery, so I'm glad I got a chance to tell him that.
The thing that will always stick with me about Tom is that he had so much energy. And we used to talk a lot because we both had small children, and we both did the 11 o'clock news. And that's a lot when you have small, but he brought it. Whenever the camera was on, he brought it. I mean, he would nap in the studio between shows so that he could bring it when he got on the air. And I admired it about him because there were days where I didn't feel like I could bring it, but I always knew he was gonna have the energy, he was gonna have the enthusiasm, and he was gonna be a guy that people could count on to put a smile on their face every day. And there aren't a lot of people who could have done that. So it's something that I think it takes that much more joy out of your life when someone who brought so much joy to others wasn't able to feel it the way that he was able to give it to other people.